I have always been a huge fan of games like Stardew Valley and Minecraft for the farming aspect, and self-designated my role in our family Minecraft server as the farmer and provider. So you'd probably be surprised to learn that I've never actually played a farming sim game in my life. Now, with my current trend of genre busting out of my shell, I spotted farming sim on sale for a paltry, pun intended, $4 and thought I would give it a go. And with the full release of the wildly popular Farming Simulator 2023 releasing on May 23rd, I thought I'd spend $4 before investing in a full price AAA new release, and I quickly learned two things. The first thing is that PharmaSim has nothing to do with that franchise. But secondly, despite being a budget version of that hit farming sim, there's a bit of enjoyment to be had in PharmaSim on Switch, as long as your expectations are managed. Loading into the game, you're given a very brief tutorial about hitching up a plow and then being told to plow, seed and harvest a field. After you sell your first trailer load of grain, you are left to your own devices and it can all get a bit confusing from there. The UI is very large and distracting, and most actions you take boil down to a text prompt with a big red cross and an OK button popping up, but it's difficult to tell what you have selected due to the UI design. I remember refueling my tractor became an exercise in frustration, as the pump prompt asked me to refuel and I unknowingly closed out the window several times, forcing me to drive around the pump again to prompt the fueling process. It's the small things like this that hold PharmaSim on the Nintendo Switch back and make it a sometimes frustrating experience. The core gameplay loop is growing corn or wheat, harvesting it and selling it, and then upgrading your machines. One major problem I found here is there's no real stats on new gear, and the stats that are shown are reduced to a corn or a wheat icon above the item to tell you what it can be used for, but it doesn't really say much else. Now, a seasoned farm sim player might not have that problem, but as a newcomer to farming life, I found it very confusing and not very beginner friendly. The game runs at a fixed, smooth frame rate, and even while driving into the populated town to sell your goods. The machines look detailed and varied with a decent poly count, but when it comes to crops or effects like seeding and ploughing, the game can be a mixed bag. Textures crudely pop onto the field in front of your plough, and seeding looks like your combine is smoking. Textures in the town look a little rough, and your crops are 2D sprites that simply disappear when you run your harvester over them. The game has a day and night cycle, but when nighttime hits, I found myself running into indestructible fences, despite having my brightness higher than normal. The sound is terrible with a low quality engine loop noise, and it just doesn't really work. So when I played with the volume right down so I could listen to my podcasts. I did find the process of farming and selling somewhat relaxing, and despite the game's grinding gameplay loop, there was enjoyment to be had, especially at the $4 price point. You can't really go wrong. The gameplay did get old during my playthrough, and I found that I could only farm corn and wheat. Managing livestock is rather basic, and it fits on a single screen that displays how many cows and animals you have, how many you want to buy, and you simply just click a plus button to do so. There seems to be no limit on livestock numbers, and the pens only show a fixed amount rendered in-game. That same livestock screen just ticks over profits occasionally, and all you have to do is click to collect the profits, and you don't need to take them anywhere to sell them. You don't have to feed your animals too, or do much with them for that matter, but they do generate a tiny profit to upgrade your tools, and it can be tedious but also relaxing, and it does feel rewarding when you sell your harvests at the local depot. I wish there was more incentive though to upgrade that machinery, and that machinery had more details about why you need to spend $125,000 on a new ute. Instead, it fumbles around clunky menus trying to find out if your new plow is larger or does something new. You can, however, automate your machinery in your fields though, so having multiple tractors plow fields while you combine seeds and harvests is rewarding. Each task will require you to switch to the proper gear before driving the machine onto the field and clicking auto, but it is a nice incentive to have multiple fields ticking over while multiple machines tend to your farm. There's fun to be had in PharmaSim if you go into it with the right mindset. It's a light version of what could have been, a demo of sorts. The game might be best thought of as the days of the old shareware titles, without the sharing part. It's a low-cost entry-level introduction to a much larger farming simulator genre, and a great way to dip your toes in the farming sim pool. If that's the case, It certainly whet my appetite to try something with a bit more meat on its bones, and I've already pre-ordered my copy of Farming Simulator 2023 because I want more. The only problem is, I'm not going to find it here in PharmaSim. I give it a 6 out of 10. For $4 you can't go wrong from a nice distraction, just don't expect a AAA quality. It's a nice little distraction with a very affordable price point, a good starting point if you don't want to invest in a full price farming sim. But the UI is messy and clunky with low quality sounds, and there's no real direction or explanation for progression. For more reviews, stay tuned to whatsitlike.com.au.